Welcome to our show, Legends of Sri Lanka. Now I have a distinguished guest here. Let me introduce you to him this way. He is a Cambridge scholar and the Governor General of Victoria on behalf of our former Queen issued letters of patent as a Queen's Counsel, and now by protocol he is a King's Counsel. Let me introduce you to Mr. Nimal Vikramanayaka to our program, KC, Queen's Counsel.
KC, that's right.
Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Right. I'm not following the convention here, Mr. Vikramanayaka, but can I just ask, when you first came to Australia from Ceylon, that is around 1971, 1972, somehow you got a job, and then you were sacked.
That's right.
Unceremoniously.
That's right.
Can I just first ask you, in that last discussion, what was told? How did they sack you?
What do you mean by how did they sack me? I was employed as a solicitor, right? Now I didn't know what job I had to do as a solicitor. I followed my Sri Lankan, my Ceylon practice of writing long, lengthy advices. All I had to do was, I was employed as a solicitor in a firm to advise insurance companies as to what their liability was in an accident case and how much had to be paid. I didn't know that. I used to write long, lengthy advices.
And I was told that you were not properly inducted to the firm.
That's right.
And you had quite substantial advice letters written, and that's not what they wanted.
That's right.
So one fine day, they called you, and there's two gentlemen, and feel free to name names if you wish,
yes,
because in your book you have mentioned one name.
Yeah.
But I was more particularly interested to know what they told you.
Well, they called me in and told me that I had no brains.
And then...
which was surprising, because here was I writing long, lengthy advices. And in fact, they used to correct my English.
Yes, and later on, one of the gentlemen who was in that, I'll call it a sacking panel, there was two people.
Yeah.
You met that gentleman in Melbourne City.
Yeah, years later.
Years later, and you were a successful barrister at the time.
That's right.
And what did you write in your book? There's a particular thing
Well, the interesting part of this was that there was a famous writer who, when he was dismissed, he wrote a book, and I'm trying to remember what he wrote for sacking me with, I can't now remember what was,
right.
But it was a very interesting comment he made when he wrote his book for dismissing me with, I can't remember now anyway, for dismissing.
And thank the people who sacked him.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I thank them very much.
You thanked the person who sacked you, and because that prompted you to, because of your wife's insistence,
that's right,
enter the bar.
Enter the bar.
And you were a successful barrister at the time.
Yes. But it was very interesting, because nobody in his right mind would go to the bar at that time. There was very, very strong antagonism between Protestants and Catholics. When a Protestant advertised for a job for a Catholic, he would say Catholics don't, when he advertised for a job, he would put an advertisement, Catholics don't apply.
How the times have changed.
That's
This
right.
is an advertisement by the legal profession or lawyers basically.
Lawyers.
Discriminating
Against-
religions against another religion.
Yeah. That's
So that's what he experienced in early 1970s and probably until quite late as well.
Much later.
Much later. Now, at the end, I would also be asking for him for his guidance and what he thinks the situation or the process that a young professional who migrates to Australia or who has already migrated, who may face discrimination or uncertainty in his career, because I know it's the experience of a lot of migrants, skilled migrants, that when they come to Australia, highly skilled, that they can't get the job that they practice in their overseas countries.
That's right.
Now, you face the same thing.
Yeah.
You actually studied in a very highly distinguished university,
That's
Cambridge.
Right, Cambridge, yeah.
You practiced for 11 or 12 years in Ceylon.
And I was one of the leaders of the junior bar in Ceylon.
In Ceylon. However, you couldn't find a job.
I couldn't get a job here for
And then you were
3
sacked
weeks.
for saying, writing detailed advice letters.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, end of this session, we'll ask for your opinion and suggestions and hints for our young professionals in developing their career pathways. But let me come to this book now, which is titled A Life in the Law, a Memoir by Nimal Vikramanayaka. Now, the foreword has been prepared by the former retired High Court Judge, the Honorable Michael Kirby.
Kirby, yes.
And he had this to say. I'm getting old as well, I need to get my glasses. And at times it is interesting, entertaining. Often it is a tale of hurt. Now, we can't compare what we experience now these days, but we would like to share your experience at the time and hope we can learn our young professionals and the professionals or migrants coming to Australia how to navigate the system. You were put down at certain instances, and we're talking about the legal profession. It's an esteemed profession.
It is.
And you face certain magistrates. Those were in court outright discriminatory.
Yes.
And if you could tell us some experiences from your memory.
Well, I'm just trying to. There were so many bad experiences I had. I remember when I my very first case, I had a dreadful experience. When I went to the bar, I had to shorten my name from Vikramanayaka to Vikrama, or Vikrama as the Australians called it, right? My very first case, I went before a magistrate called Harry Border. It was a nasty piece of work. When I went there, he asked me what my name was. I said Vikrama. He said, carry on, Mr. Nkrumah. Now, Nkrumah was the president of Ghana.
Yes.
Which was really a foul, filthy way to address me. I told him my name was Vikrama. He said, that's all right, carry on, Mr. Nkrumah. Then what happened was, things became much worse, because the two barristers sat on either side of me. When it was my turn to cross-examine the complainant's barrister, I got up to cross-examine, and this fellow objected to my question.
I think you say that objected to every question.
Not just every, he objected to every question I put.
And you were not given the opportunity to present your case.
That's right. And the magistrate upheld every objection, although I had 12 years experience as a barrister in Ceylon, and I was an extremely competent barrister. He upheld every objection, and this went on in his cross-examination of his client, the cross-examination of the first defendant's client, and they kept on badgering me and upholding every objection. It was a terrible experience.
And when you objected to some of his questions,
he threw my objections out.
yes, so that's what he experienced in his profession. Now, luckily, probably because of your agitations and the changing nature of things in this present day and age, that system does not exist
No.
at this in this day and age now.
In this stage and age.
Which we are fortunate to come after you and to experience a different environment. However, the Law Reform Commission, as recent as in 2021, indicated that there is a lack of representation from people coming from Asia or people with Asian heritage, and they actually made few suggestions as well. So I think there is a disproportionate representation, or to put it another way, lack of proper representation even now,
Yes.
which is acknowledged by the legal reform councils. Now, I'll take you to a different, I'll probably ask a different question from you now. I, not in relation to law, however, you mentioned that as we were known then, Ceylon was very well regarded and a developed sort of a country. Now, when we were born, we didn't know about Ceylon. Of course, it is Sri Lanka. And now you know the situation in Sri Lanka. It's very bad and a sad
bad.
situation.
Yeah.
But what's your experience of living in Ceylon then, and the respect that others had to people before 1970s?
Before
I guess.
1970.
Yeah. And our civil service was the best in the Commonwealth as well.
Yes.
And so was our judiciary.
Yes. We had some grand judges, extremely fine judges.
Yes. Now, I'll actually need to show this as well, and as a person from a Sri Lankan heritage, as a lawyer, I'm proud to show this and acknowledge this book. But this is an authoritative book in relation to the law in Victoria, Australia.
Not only in Victoria, in 2006, a great New South Wales judge, Mr. Justice Peter Young, caused a survey to be made of the top 20 books in Australia. And my book is in the top 20 books in Australia.
And this is The Sale of Land.
Yes.
And it's an authoritative book, and he's an authority in relation to sale of land.
Yeah, and the strange thing is this, a professor at Monash called Marcia Neve was appointed to the Court of Appeal. But her books were not recognized by Mr. Justice Peter Young. Her books are not in, whereas my book is in that list of
Great books, yes.
The top 20 books, my book is there. But Justice Neve, her books are not in that
Category.
Right.
Yeah. And you were given the title or the letters patent in 2002. 2002. And you became a Queen's Counsel from there.
Mhm.
Now, from 2002, it's interesting. Did you see a change in attitude and approach to people from various, or at least in the bar, in the judiciary?
Yes.
The treatment towards people from different countries and ethnicities?
No, there wasn't much change.
There wasn't much change.
Yes.
Right. And when did it start changing?
I don't think it has changed at all.
Right. That's quite.
It is a reflection on the legal profession in Melbourne, that they have got a very strange attitude to people from the Asian countries. They got a very strange attitude.
Mhm.
They still haven't. Now, I'll give you an example. The Victorian Bar recently did a filed filed a most interesting thing of a Chinese barrister. They put his photograph up in the bar. Nobody's thought of putting up a photograph of me. But this Chinese barrister, all he did was, he was a Chinese barrister. Whereas I had this whole string of achievements. But nobody decided to give me any recognition.
Right. And currently, are you still engaged in
Oh, yes, still writing
this
it.
book? Still writing this book,
Yes.
and you're retired from your practice
Yeah,
now.
I retired 9 years ago.
9 years ago. Can I just ask what suggestions you can provide or happy to share with young professionals or people coming from other countries in Australia in relation to their career pathways? The one reason that I'm asking you is, Mr. Vikramanayake, because some people, they can't absolutely, now in a way you and I are lucky, you got into your profession with great difficulties. Some highly qualified people don't get that ability or the opportunity to practice. They have to, settle in another profession.
That's right.
Highly
very
skilled
sad.
people, very sad, even medical practitioners.
That's right. Yeah.
And at one point I remember I was told in my profession, I practice immigration law as well, and this a professional who wanted to migrate to Australia had to do a skills assessment, and he asked, okay, what are the things that I need to go through? Or you need to go through these books, and was given few books. And they've said, we'll test your knowledge based on these books, and he said, has pointed out, and this is one of the authoritative books on the subject. He said, I wrote this book. The person who was asked to do the skills assessment. But what survival tactics, if I may call it, or what suggestions you like to give people who are coming from other countries?
Well, let's take my brother. My brother was an MD, MRCP, and he was a brilliant physician. He wanted to come to Victoria in 1972, but they wanted him to sit for an exam. And he was one of the top highly qualified lawyers. Instead, he had to go to Sydney, and he was placed in charge. He ran the diabetic clinic at the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital for 30 years. But he couldn't come to Melbourne because they would refuse to recognize his qualifications. Now, you'll have the same problem in Victoria, in the legal profession. There's nothing real.
What was your how did you navigate through these issues, and what suggestions can you give to our
Well, I had three things: the heart of a lion, the skin of a rhinoceros, and the patience of Job. You need those three things: the heart of a lion, the skin of a rhinoceros, and the patience of Job. Those are the three things you need. You must not let them put you down. You must keep fighting. That's my advice.
Right. We've come to the end of our show, but do you like to say anything else or add anything before we end our discussion, Mr. Vikramanayake?
In what sort of?
In anything you want to say in relation to your experience or in relation to Victoria, Australia, or Sri Lanka in general?
In general, well, it's.
Or in general, or personal experience, or in general.
Well, it's. There's nothing really we can do because we've got this problem about racism, and it's very sad that there is nothing I can, as I just told you, they have put a photograph of a Chinese barrister up at the bar. I have had a much greater influence in the legal profession, but They don't want to recognize me.
Yes.
There's nothing I can do about it.
Now, let me refresh, let me reintroduce this book again for those who do not know. This is an authoritative book by Mr. Vikramanayaka, now Queen's Counsel. He's still involved in updating
Yes.
this book. This is the Sale of Land book, and this is his memoir, Life in the Law. And thank you for coming and having this discussion with us.
Thank you very much
Mr.
for
Vikramanayaka.
inviting me. I'm greatly, it's a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Clear.
Right. Uncle, වෙන විදිහට ඉවර කරන්න ඕනේද?
No, no,
Okay, right.
that's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
That's good. It's a
Yes,
privilege. As he says, we have to record these things for a lot of people who might not know a few years' time. So we have to keep it
Because
for.
our experience and our generation definitely will not understand what you have gone through, and that can be encouraged by your story.
Mm. I had a terrible time, very,
Mm.
very terrible time.
When you read this book, it's quite different.
That's an interesting book.
It is. Yes.
That's
All right,
good.
Bandhavka?
Thank you very much.
Right.
Pleasure, Bandhu.
So let's. What do we do?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
All
think. I mean, he can't.
Okay,
really-
Netha Kosan, Uncle.
Very good, very good.
Very good.
You are
Okay,
happy?
course. Huh?
You are happy?
Yeah, yeah.
He said what he had to say. And because that's what we need, I mean, for the
The,
other generations to come, we need.
No one can challenge as well. It's factual, and he's now KC.
Yeah.
So if it's a different person in a different occupation, you can say, oh, there's problems, or can someone sue, is this correct and what not. But his experience, no one, Justice Kirby has written the foreword,
yeah.
and he's telling outright, left, right and center, hitting everyone.
Yeah.
No, can you imagine getting a Justice Kirby to write
Yeah.
a forward?
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible.
Did you, I just went out, did you mention that his launch will be on the 26th
I
of
know I didn't.
The what?
The launch?
book launch, 26th?
26.
I probably mentioned that you can.
Maybe. Yeah.
You write a small note
Right.
as the introduction,
Mhm.
both yourself and of him, and say that this interview is based on the 26th launch of the book.
Right. Which book? This one.
That's
So
right.
it's not been launched yet.
No, 26.
Oh, right. I saw a thing of this book, some piece in a paper somewhere an year or two ago. I thought it was already launched.
No,
Oh.
not 26.
Oh, right. I thought it was
So why
another
don't
book.
we do something like that?
Uh-huh.
You said goodbye or whatever.
Yeah.
But really, before we finish this, I would like to mention.
Yes, I probably should actually.
Right.
Maybe couple
Couple of
because I didn't feel right saying that last part. But then it's good. 26th
October.
of October, where
At the Soil Club, the bar, at the Victorian bar.
at the Victorian Bar.
And who is launching it?
I am launching it, but I'm introducing. So what's this?
Introduce or
I'm Robert Richter.
But,
Robert Richter
Uh,
is introducing my book.
good. That's what we
Do
need.
you know who Robert Richter is?
I don't know.
He was the one who appeared for Cardinal Pell.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
He is the greatest. He is the greatest criminal barrister in Australia, and he appeared for Cardinal Bell, and Cardinal Pell should have been acquitted. But Robert Richter couldn't see. But the High Court said that Robert Richter was right.
Right. And can the public participate as well? Or
Oh, yes, yes,
invited?
yes, yes.
Right. The
Ah,
Victorian
yes,
Bar on the 26th. What time?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. That's the, what do you call it? It's not the introduction, launch of this book. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that what you call it?
Yes,
Launch.
sir.
Yes, all right.
Yeah.
You say that?
Anyway, thank you very much for inviting me.
I'll
Great
we'll
pleasure.
add this part as well.
Wait,
While-
wait,
Okay.
wait for 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, go.
Now, there is a launch. This book has not been launched. I was privileged to have been given this book prior to the launch. And the launch is on the 26th of October at the Victorian Bar. And the starting time is 5 o'clock, is that right?
Yes. But there's a very interesting point. 50 years ago, I left my 50 years ago, I did my book. I wrote my book. I wrote my
The first copy of the book?
no. I 50 years ago, I signed the bar roll.
Ah, right.
Exactly 50 years ago.
Oh, I see. On the 26th, you'll be
26th
50
of
years
October,
ago.
71.
Right.
72.
1972. Right. So anyone can participate. And again, this is in the Melbourne City at the Victorian Bar.
Yeah. Thank you, Dinesh.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Now, I was given this book before the launch, and I'm privileged to have this book and have read some of the pages. I'm pretty sure I'll read the rest of the book within a day or so. It's such an interesting book. The Life in the Law, a memoir, and this will be the launch. The launching date will be the 26th of October at the Victorian Bar. And the book will be introduced by one of the prominent Australian barristers, Robert Richter. And something else I just wanted to mention now. I hope you don't mind, you are now mentioning that how old you are.
Yeah, you can mention it.
Yeah, 89 years old,
Hmm.
and he's coming from a distinguished legal family, if I may say so. His father and uncle was also King's Counsel, and you're a King's Counsel now in Australia. So I think it probably is the only occasion in
We
the
are the
world
only
where
two Queen King's Council in two different countries.
father and son. I don't think they.
No.
Probably it's a world record.
It's a world record.
I don't know. So again, and then in Ceylon at the time, I think they only appoints 2 Queen's Counsel or King's Counsel for every 2 years.
Yeah.
And in Australia, we appoint about
50.
50
Every year.
So, and you're the only, as far as I'm aware, and I think I'm correct.
No, you're correct.
I was going to say that only person with a Sri Lankan heritage who has obtained the latest patent as a Queen's
That's right,
Counsel.
yeah.
So we are privileged to have had this meeting with you,
Yeah.
and we wish you well and long life. And thank you for coming to this interview today.
Thank you.
Thank you.